In the Old Testament, whenever people wanted to meet with God, they had to go up. They had to climb up a mountain. Abraham went up Mount Moriah to offer Isaac. Moses climbed out Mount Sinai to receive the commandments. Elijah stood on Mount Carmel to call down fire. Mountains were holy ground, but they were also hard to climb. They symbolized something powerful. If you wanted to reach God, you had to go up. In the Bible, mountains are mentioned not merely as geographic settings, but as sacred places where heaven and earth collide, where the divine presence joins humanity to provide instruction, direction, and hope for the day where heaven and earth are finally one. But everything changed. Everything changed when God came down and stepped into this world as Jesus of Nazareth, becoming one of us, fully human, to be with us where we are. And that leads us to point number 1. God came down to meet us. John 1:14 says, "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us." God did not send another set of steps. He sent a Savior. He did not just call from the mountain. He came down from heaven. The reason Jesus is now the meeting place between heaven and earth, and through him we can meet God personally, anywhere, any time. John 14:6 says, Jesus answered, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." This is the scandal of the gospel. We no longer have to go up to reach God. God came down to reach us. He meets us in our schools, in our workplaces, in our cars, in our kitchens, in our crisis moments, not because we climbed, but because he descended. But there was a deeper problem, a different mountain, and that is sin. Sin built a mountain that we could never climb, a mountain of shame, a mountain of guilt, a mountain of fear, and a mountain of distance. And that leads us to point number 2. Sin made a gap, and Jesus closed it. You see, we try to climb our way up to God with our good intentions, good works, religion, tradition, and rituals, but that mountain was too steep for us to climb, and God knew that. God realized that that mountain is way too steep for us to climb. So Jesus did what we could never do. Philippians 2, verse 6 to 8, this is a summarized version of it. He made himself nothing and humbled himself, even to death on a cross. He descended so we could ascend. He came down into our pain. He came down into our brokenness. He came down to our humanity. And when he rose up again, Jesus did not say, "Climb up." He said, "It is finished." That leads us to point number 3. The mountain was a shadow. Jesus is the reality. Hebrews 12, verse 18 and 22. "You have not come to a mountain that can be touched, but you have come to Mount Zion," to Jesus. Mount Sinai was terrifying. Smoke, fire, thunder. People couldn't even touch it. But now we can come to Jesus, not trembling in fear, but drawn in love. We come to Jesus because of love. Jesus is the greater mountain, the true meeting place between man and God. He is not found in a location, he is found in a person. And through him, you do not have to climb. You simply have to seek him and draw near to him. Matthew 11:28 says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." The mountain said, "Climb." Jesus says, "Come to me." Jesus says, "Come to me." You do not have to climb a mountain to be forgiven. You do not have to earn your way into God's presence. You do not have to prove yourself to be loved by God. Because Jesus came down and he opened the way. He came down so grace could rise. He came down so heaven could touch earth. He came down so you could go in. So stop striving, stop climbing, stop performing. The mountain has been moved. Hebrews 4 verse 16 says, "Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence." You see, the only mountain that has ever truly mattered is a hill called Calvary. There's this song called God, You're So Good. And when they sing verse 3, something hits my soul. Something deep hits my soul. And this is what it says. "And should this life bring suffering, Lord, I'll remember what Calvary has bought for me, both now and forever. Should this life bring suffering, Lord, I'll remember what Calvary has bought for me, both now and forever." I'm not ignoring what I'm going through. I'm not pretending that what I'm going through hurts, but I've made the decision to place Jesus in his rightful place. I've made the decision to trust Jesus. I've made the decision to lift my eyes above the waters. And maybe that's where you are too. Maybe the weight has been too heavy for you. Maybe the constant striving has left you worn out. Maybe you've been pretending as if everything is okay and you're just tired. You've reached the end. But can I speak to that part of you? Stop trying to climb a mountain that has already been moved. Stop carrying what you were never meant to carry. Stop pretending, because Jesus is calling. Not with shame, not with guilt, but with love. He says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." And I know it's not always easy. I know that sometimes getting out of the bed feels like a victory. And I know that the weight is real. But I also know that I'm standing here today, standing in grace, not because I've got it all figured out, not because I was strong enough, not because I climbed high enough, but it's because he came down, because grace reached lower than my lowest point, and because love met me where I was. And that very same Jesus is calling you right now. That very same Jesus is calling you right here. He came down for you. He moved that mountain for you. The cross is enough. Your situation doesn't change who God is. Your situation doesn't undo the power of the cross. On that hill, Jesus did for us what we could never do for ourselves.